Hey Finxters! Today we will be quickly discussing how to overwrite the previous print to standard output in Python. Now let's try to understand the question first. So let's say that we have this piece of code wherein we have first imported the time module. Now we have imported the time module in order to use its sleep method. Then we have a for loop which ranges from 0 until 10, and inside the for loop we are checking if each number within this range is divisible by 2 or not. That means we are checking if the given number is even or not. If it is even, then we are printing the number, and after that we are using the sleep method of the time module to create a wait time or a time interval of 2 seconds, after which the next number will be printed. So to better understand this, let us visualize the output. So there we go. As you can see that the numbers are getting printed. First we had 0, then 2, then 4, then 6, then 8, and that's it. And if you have noticed, each number got printed after a certain interval, and that interval was 2 seconds, which has been passed within the sleep method. Now, this is not the kind of output that we want. The result is all right. However, we do not want to print it this way. Rather, we want to print the output in a way that 0 appears first, and in the first line itself, 0 gets replaced by 2, then 2 gets replaced by 4, and so on. So that means we want to display all the numbers one by one in the same line instead of printing them one by one on different lines. So how are we going to do that? So that is exactly what we will be learning in this video. The simplest way to solve our problem is to use an escape character known as the carriage return. So let's learn a bit about the carriage return character. The carriage return character is nothing but it is an escape character, just like /n. So as most of you might be knowing, that /n is an escape character which helps us to print the string on the next line. Similarly, /r is the carriage return character, which is basically used to shift the cursor to the beginning of a line or a string instead of allowing it to move on to the next line. So whenever you use the carriage return escape character, the content that comes after the occurrence of the carriage return character will appear on top of the previous output, and it will replace the characters of the previous output one by one until it occupies all the contents left. Are you confused? Well, not worry. As soon as we have a look at this example, things will be crystal clear. So in order to achieve the kind of output that we want, all you have to do is to go ahead inside this print statement and use the end parameter, and within the end parameter you have to pass the carriage return character, and that's it. Now let's go ahead and visualize the output. So there we go. We first have 0, and then 2, and then 4, and then 6, and then 8. So as you saw, in this case, all the output or all the numbers got printed on the same line. So that is exactly what we want. So this is how you can use the carriage return character to accomplish this result. However, there's a problem here. Let's say that we have a different piece of code. So let's say that we have this piece of code. Now in this code, we have a list which stores the strings start and processing result. We are simply iterating over this list and printing each item one by one on the same line with the help of the carriage return character. But then when we come out of the loop, we are once again printing the string terminate. Now what I want you to focus upon is the length of the strings. So as you can see, that start probably is the smallest string, while processing result is the longest string, and terminate lies somewhere between these two strings. That is the length of terminate. So what happens when we print terminate on top of processing result? That is on top of this string. So let's see what happens when we execute this piece of code. We have start, then processing result, And then as you can see that we have a string which looks something like this. But this is not what we want. We want the output to be terminate. But when terminate tried to overwrite this string, it was not able to cover up the entire string which was previously printed. Hence, those characters which could not be covered by the next string, that is terminate, were also displayed along with it. But we do not want the output to be something like this. So in order to avoid this problem, instead of simply overriding the previous output, you can clear the previous output completely before displaying the next output. That means instead of just overwriting, you are first clearing the output and then writing the new or the next output. And this can be done with the help of an ANSI sequence. So that means just after completing the loop, you have to use a print statement, and within it, once again use the end parameter, and within the end parameter, use this escape sequence. So this is the escape sequence which helps us to clear the output. And once you have cleared the output completely, you can then go ahead and print the next output, which is terminate. So let's have a look if this works or not. We have start, then processing result, and finally we have terminate. So this is exactly the kind of output that we wanted. So this is how you can use a combination of the carriage return character along with the ANSI sequence to clear or erase the string at the end of the line to display outputs which have different lengths. That means the strings start, processing result, and terminate had different lengths. Hence, we first used the carriage return character over each other, override the output, and then we also used the ANSI sequence to clear the previous output before writing the next output. Well, there's another way of doing this. Instead of using the carriage return character, you can simply use a couple of ANSI sequences which will help you to overwrite the outputs. The idea is to use an extra print statement instead of using the end parameter within the print statement that is used to display the output. And within the extra print statement, you can use the ANSI sequence to move the cursor back to the previous line where the output was previously printed, and then clear it out before printing the next result. So let's try to understand this step by step. So let's say that we have the same piece of code wherein we have this list and we are trying to print each string one by one on the same line. However, let's say that we don't have this end parameter which stores the carriage return character. Rather, let's say that we have couple of other variables such that each variable stores ANSI sequences. So this ANSI sequence right here will help us to move the cursor from the next line to the previous line, while this ANSI sequence will help us to clear the previous output. Let's remove this line of code, and inside our for loop, after we have used the sleep method, all we have to do is to use an extra print statement, and within this we have to pass our ANSI sequences. So the first ANSI sequence that we have to pass will help Python to shift the cursor from the next line to the previous line, and that ANSI sequence was stored within this variable up. Now we need to use the end parameter, and in this case the end parameter will store the ANSI sequence which will help us to clear the output in the previous line. So that is stored within the variable clear, and that's it. Now let's go ahead and execute this piece of code to find out if this works or not. And there we go. We first have start, then processing result, and finally we have terminate. So let's try to understand this in a better way. So let's say that this right here is our output screen. And now let's say that initially the cursor is at line 15. So let's say this is the line where the output will be printed. So first it will print start. And then what it will do is that it will move on to the next line. Immediately after moving on to the next line, it will encounter this print statement wherein Python will instruct it to move upward to the previous line. So from the line 16, it will move on to line 15 once again. And then the end parameter will instruct it to clear out this line, that is the entire text present in this line. So it will simply go ahead and erase out the entire string. And then it will print the next string within the list, which is processing result, and once again move on to the next line. Once again, when it moves on to the next line, it encounters this print statement, and this print statement asks it to move back or upward to the previous line. So it moves on to this line once again, and then this print statement instructs it to clear out the entire string. So it will clear out this entire string and then finally print the string terminate. With that, the script will come to an end and we will have the desired output. So this is how this piece of code works. Now this can be a little complex, but the output that is being generated is far more neat and clean in this case. You don't even have to worry about the length of the previous output. And as you saw when we printed the output, that there was no visual hindrance created by the cursor. So you can definitely use this method to accomplish the output that you want. With that, we come to the end of this lecture. I hope this helped you. If you have any doubts, please mention them in the comments below, and I'll try my best to answer all your queries. Thank you.